Hey everybody, this is Brendan O'Shea from the Mobiography Awards. We've had some technical difficulties in the lead up to this edition of our live shows today. We got on an hour beforehand to check the tech, and I was with my co-founder, Glenn Mulcahy, and everything was going really well. Everything's set up, all our slideshows, all our images, little videos, all of those things going great. Our guest, Jack Hollingsworth, joined us, about maybe 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. And then suddenly, at about 15 minutes to going live, Glenn's power went in his home up in Laois here in Ireland. And he's been desperately scrambling to find other solutions to go live with us. But thus far, we haven't had opportunities. Then the other co-founder, Andy from Mobiography, that he is on holidays at the moment in Spain with his family, and Andy joined us. He's back here now again at the moment, and we're trying to get the back end things working so we can proceed with the show. But then a minute before going live, our guest, Jack Hollingsworth, vanished. So this is one of the things when we're doing a live show online. Everything up to now, I think, in the 7 or 8 shows that we have done has done really, really well. I'm getting a bit of backbeat to your end, and then that you mute it. Yep. So everything has gone really well for us so far, and this is one of the shows where things haven't gone well. But we're being the professionals that we are. We're going to keep the show on the road, and that's to start. I'll just say to Andy, can you mute yourself? There's a lot of noise coming back.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're doing, again, is to welcome those of you who is first time joining us. Maybe you don't know much about the Mobiography Awards, what the competition is. So Mobiography Awards, it's our second year running it, and it's competition for mobile photography that's created on mobile devices. And I think the big news that we have that, hi, Cecilia, hello from Brazil. Great to see the people joining in. That the big news that we have this week, this edition of the live shows that we have, is that we're delighted to announce that we've got our main sponsor, Sony Xperia, who have come on board to sponsor the awards. And it is absolutely fantastic to have such a prestigious name and a prestigious brand. And, Sony, that the devices that they produce for image capturing are just absolutely fantastic. So big thanks to Sony for coming on board with us. And we look forward to, promoting them and seeing what we can offer with Sony Xperia as we move forward. So Mobiography Awards could be your first time watching this and you know what they're about. So what it is that the Mobiography Awards, we started last year, we ran the competition, and we're really want to do things differently. We're very much about a community-based approach and about sharing learning and giving something back to the photography community, which is kind of a global community that we have here with Mobiography. And in doing that, what we decided to do with Glenn and Andy is that we'd have these live shows, which would be learning events, which would allow the community to come on board, watch the live events or watch recordings of them later. And last year we had fantastic guests like Renzo Grande, Mark Farnley. We had live editing shows that I did myself, and it's really about giving something back to the community. This year, the awards have grown. We've increased the prize money from the grand prize winner now gets $1,500 and also gets a live show. One of the live shows that we'll have after when the awards are announced will showcase the work of our grand prize winner, and there'll be an interview with the prize winner, and it'll be a great way for to showcase how good your photos are that have come to the top in our competition. This year we've grown the competition also. Last year we had only 4 categories. This year we've gone from 4 to 8. And the different categories that we have this year, we've got architecture and urban scene, and we're looking for photographs of maybe striking buildings that you may have. We've also, it's popping up on your screen here, different to what I had started with architecture, but abstract and digital. Okay, abstract and digital art, where that, again, this allows you to get really creative with the images that you're creating. You might be using apps and post-editing to create artistic images, and also abstract images, maybe that you're looking to try to get make the ordinary extraordinary. We also have black and white, which would be a photographer's favorite. And again, we're looking for striking images where you're getting contrasting black and white elements that come together in a photograph. Then we've added a family and home. And if you think about that, why people take photographs, very often they are, to create treasured moments of loved ones, family members, and also just the home environment that we're in. We also have the next category that would be portraits. And again, that this would be this classic one that you're trying to take photographs of people and getting them to portray and reveal emotions that you might find in the images. We've also travel in a sense of place, which is a new category again this year. And we have the classic one for street photography. So anybody in urban scenes that would, showing people in street photography scenes. So there are our categories that we have this year. And as I said, we're delighted to have Sony Xperia as our main sponsor. We've also got our prize giveaways, and that's one of the new things that we're running with this year. And we've got sponsored this show is the giveaways come from Joby, and Joby are going to giving fantastic gear for one of the winners, lucky winners that we'll draw later in the show. And we also have had prizes from other sponsors, giveaways from Reflex, who gave lenses, I think, in the last show. And our next live event, which is planned in the coming weeks, we will have bags from Cozy Speed, who make fantastic bags for photographers and for mobile photographers. So that would be the prizes and our sponsors giveaways. So at this point now, I would be turning and looking for to start my talk with our guest, Jack Hollingsworth. Here he is. Fantastic. Jack, you're here.
Oh, hey.
Like magic, you reappeared.
There you go. I like magic. Fantastic.
So I was saying that we've had some technical difficulties, but we're rolling with it. We're going to get through. So we have had, in the background, we had a little video to introduce Jack. We've been showing some of his images, but maybe just to give a little background of who Jack Hollingsworth is. I think, that one of the things that I would encourage photographers to do to improve in photography would be to hang out with fellow photographers. And why? I think that when you're with people who share a passion that you have, there's fantastic learning opportunities. And just from being with like-minded people, you're going to learn. I think the thing that I love about Jack, and I know Jack, personally, that I've met him a few times at different events that we've been to here in Ireland and in the UK. And what Jack has is that he brings a joy to everything that he does, that you will see in the images that we'll showcase as we go through it, that Jack really, really loves what he does. He's a seasoned photographer, a very successful commercial photographer for years and years. And I think for those who want to survive in any field, you have to be open to change. And I think what we'll discover also as we're talking to Jack is that he made a big jump from big end, high end cameras to mobile devices, and in that he continued to produce work of such a high quality and is still sought after as a commercial photographer and in travel, portrait, and destination photographs. And that Jack is going to inspire. When you listen to him, you're going to want to get out immediately and create images on your mobile device, and it is infectious. And with that, I'm going to welcome our guest, Jack. It's absolutely fantastic to have you here. We've been waiting a while to get you onto the Mobiography live events, and thank you so much. Tell us, where are you beaming in from this morning? Because it's morning still for you.
Yeah, it is morning, and so sorry that you're having, streaming issues. I know that's frustrating, but good work in kind of bringing the content forward. I am streaming from Austin, Texas. I just moved like 2 or 3 days ago, so this is the iteration 1 of the new home studio. So I'm not really quite set up, but kind of ready to go and ready to share my love and passion for mobile with your audience.
Fantastic. So it's still early morning for you there in Austin, Texas.
It is.
Yeah, we're getting into the afternoon. So my first question, Jack, is why photography? What is it about photography that does it for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brendan. It's kind of funny because I was talking with my friend Doug Peebles, who's a well-known commercial photographer from Hawaii, and he told me last week via Twitter that the reason he does photography because he doesn't know how to do anything else. And
Okay.
I thought, yeah, that's kind of my story too. I'm not sure. I've been doing photography for so long,
Uh-huh.
over 45 years,
Wow.
that I don't really know what I would be doing if it wasn't photography. But back up 45 years, I grew up in back up 68 years. I grew
Okay.
up in a middle class family on the outskirts of Boston, and my dad was a larger than life, popular high school football coach, athletic director. So my house was all about sports and
Mhm.
winning and competition and success, failure, that there was no room for arts or imagination or creativity or inventiveness. So in 1975, he gave me my first camera to take my first trip abroad. And that was the spark that I needed to be introduced to a whole different world of poets and
Uh-huh.
lyricists and creators. And I never look back.
That's
From the day that I've had a camera in my hand, it just felt comfortable.
Uh-huh. And talking about having a camera in your hand, that you were like a traditional big high-end, real cameras as they call them.
Mhm.
And then there was a dramatic shift to shooting with mobile. Tell us
Yeah.
about that. How did it go from one to the other?
Yeah, I don't, I love you to pieces, but I don't like the differentiate. I hear that all the time. Why don't you shoot with the real camera? Well, I do shoot with a real camera. It's an iPhone. So phone cameras are every bit as real as big cameras. So when I have this discussion, I like to set it up or frame it as dedicated cameras versus phone cameras.
Uh-huh.
Each have advantages and limitations. Um, but for the most part, I started out obviously with big cameras, did all of it. I've shot every format. I've used almost every camera known to man.
Mhm.
And my conversion was back in 2011 with the iPhone 4 or 4S. I don't remember, on the island of Barbados.
Uh-huh.
And since then, 10 years ago, I know it's hard to believe. I don't even believe it, but I've shot on 1 million iPhone photos on 10 different devices in 50 countries of the world. That's unbelievable. Now,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't exclusive to the iPhone experience. It took me a couple years, but once I understood what the phone camera brought to photography, it brought me full circle to why I got into photography in the first place. And that was first and foremost to live a photographic life. And that hasn't stopped.
Yeah. And when you say live a photographic life, tell me a little more about what you mean by that, Jack.
Yeah, some of the questions that I get often, obviously, because I have commercial photography experience, lots of it, decades of it. People want to know, hey, how do I make a living in photography? And how do I start a studio? And how do I get clients? And how do I make money? And blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And I don't think really, as I think back in retro, my goal wasn't really never to own and operate, or exclusively own and operate, a photographic business. My goal from the start, from the first click, was to live a photographic
Mhm.
life. I just wanted to live and breathe photography. I wanted to shoot beautiful the shots of the cracks and the creases and the crevices of
Yeah, yeah.
life. I wanted to shoot everything that I saw that made me happy, that satisfied me, that fueled and fertilized and fed my beast within.
Uh-huh.
And that really hasn't changed. So, full circle, big cameras brought me all that, but it was really about shooting for the wallet and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not the wall, as I say.
Uh-huh.
And phone cameras brought me front and center back to that early love of, oh my God, I'm living a photographic life.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I think it's important to make the distinction like that, as photographers, we don't really, make distinctions between image capturing devices. And we're not really about gear and that, and then we're more focused on light and composition and moment. Taking those things into consideration, what do you think are the advantages and maybe some disadvantages of shooting on mobile?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm probably, and I don't want to sound arrogant, humility aside, I think I'm one of the few people that really exclusively shoot with mobile, personally and commercially. The advantages are so clear cut to me. Why I would shoot with a phone? Simplicity, of course, velocity, speed, and then creativity. Say 20, 30,000 apps at my disposal to shoot, beautify, and share with the world. It's kind of like having it's like having, as I say often, a fully stocked camera store, a modern darkroom, my own branded publishing company, and a personal therapist with me 24/7, 365. So what is there not to like about that?
Yeah. In our competition, we've got like different categories, and I think that you excel in a lot of these different categories, particularly I think in portraits. And like when you're shooting portraits, and particularly on a mobile device, and what are you trying to achieve? What do you think that the camera is kind of the medium between you and your subject? What advice would you give people entering the competition for the category of people and portraits?
Yeah, I bet you get a lot of people entering, Brendan, in this category. And by the way, I just love what you guys are doing. I love what you bring to the space. You guys are really true insiders. Like I know you well. I know Andy well. I know Glenn well. I know we hang around in the same crowds, and I'm just so thrilled that you're doing that. You're taking kind of the award show. It's just not about money and revenue and entries and all that kind of stuff. You're bringing an educational component. So in terms of portraits, I tell people start with your family and friends, as you kind of learn to shoot that, and then move to perfect strangers. So I think for the most part, people have to face when they're shooting, commercial or portrait work, whether it's for competition or portfolio or for social media, you have to face the demons. And the demons are a fear of rejection. That's people saying no to you, right? But here's something else. There's another fear. It's the fear of connection when they say yes. Okay, they say yes. What do I do? Like, am I gonna be fumbling around with my camera? Am I gonna get a shot that they're gonna like? They're gonna be proud of? So again, I shoot tons and tons and tons of people, and I find the phone is more like an extension of a conversation when I'm shooting portraits, rather than hiding behind a viewfinder, which separates me from the person that I'm photographing.
Yeah. And I think there you said that you shoot tons and tons of portraits. And like, do you think that would be a good thing that you'd advise people to do, to take multiple shots when they're, shooting a portrait?
Well, yes, 100%. I'd probably, my thing is I would lean toward probably a vertical orientation, so up and down rather than landscape orientation. And all these portraits, and some of these portraits that you're showing here, maybe I shot 20, 30, 40, 50 shots to get that shot. I shot it from a higher angle, lower angle, from the side, backlit, side lid, top lid, all those things. And then in the quietness of the hour, maybe later in the day, the next day, the following week, I'm sitting down and going, that's the shot. Like, I'm not thinking about it when I'm shooting. I'm having a conversation with a camera, talking with someone, exchanging pleasantries and niceties. And then boom, there's the shot, done, move on.
Yeah, I think as well, I think a takeaway point for people who are tuning in would be like, and I've been with you and seen you in action on the street, talking to, getting portrait shots, and it's the connection that you make. And you mentioned it there that you're talking to people as you're shooting their portraits. And I think it's a very key thing to, because it relaxes the other person. And what you want in a portrait is that they reveal. And I think it's that connection, that human connection that you make. And as you said, I think that the iPhone is not, you're not concealing yourself behind a viewfinder. They don't become aware of it as much. Yeah, I think great advice for people who want to shoot portraits. One of the other things, Jack, for me that shines through in your photography and in your life as well, I think, is the love of your family. And I think that in the portraits that you shoot of your family, there's a beauty there that I think is just fantastic. And we also, like you mentioned, giving people advice to photograph their family first. Tell us about the relationship with photography and with your family, and treasured photographs that you have of your family.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, and you would probably understand this. It's getting harder and harder to shoot my 20-plus-year-old daughters. They like it less and less. They've grown up, from day one around a camera, and I've documented their life. Oh my goodness, I have so many pictures of each, but I don't get the same opportunity in their 20s that I got in their teens, and of course before then. But yeah, I think you start with your family, and I use the same principles with my kids as I would with someone on the street. And that's the cool thing about the phone, right? So here's the phone, and I'm off to the side, and I'm literally, or I'm like this, right? But my eyes are connecting with them. I'm literally having a conversation, and while I am talking, I am going click, click, click. Oh yeah, hey, you look great. Wow, I love your hair. I love that hat. Oh, hey, can you blow smoke out to the left, to the right? Smile again, laugh again. All that conversation, I'm shooting through the conversation. That is difficult when you have a camera up here and they can't see your eyes or your lips. So there's no sense of feedback. So yeah, I mean, the way I shoot my family, which is often and passionately, is the same exact way I approach someone on the street, with humility, safety, precaution, sensitivity, sensibility, care, kindness, all those things.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that, when you're shooting portraits, and particularly maybe let's say of strangers and that, I think you need to satisfy the curiosity as to what is it, because initially they think, what is it about me that you want to photograph? And once you make that connection and tell them that, as you said, I love your hair or your hat, people begin to open up. And I think that little connection again really, really can lead to getting a good portrait and shots like that. And again, the takeaway point, I think, for people think of entering the competition, take multiple photographs, because you're working in fractions of seconds, and the window of opportunity for the photograph, you want to maximize it. So take multiple shots. One of the other things, Jack, that I think really comes through and shines through in your photographic life, and I love the way you describe that, is that that you headed out seeking beauty. And I think for you, and I think for many, many photographers, that comes in seeing color. And color is so vibrant in your photography. Tell us about your relationship with color.
Well, color is where all the emotion is in a photograph, right? I mean, that's the color is the bridge to emotion and how I would feel about what I'm shooting. It may define how I'm feeling, or it may reflect or change how I'm feeling. So I've just always been in love with color from the get-go. I think, early on, I was a fan of people like Elliot Porter or Ernst Haas, or maybe some of my contemporaries like Pete Turner or Jay Maisel or Liesl Dennis. These are, this is me standing on the shoulder of giants, being inspired by color work. William Eggleston, another great street colorist that made it an art form to shoot everyday places and objects and subjects. So I don't know, color's just been so much a part of me. It's usually, I think of color as content. I mean, like what I'm attracted, color is what attracts me to a scene, and then intimacy is what keeps me in the scene.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think that sometimes people are, would ask the question of photographers that, we've spoken there about color, but like you also have black and white photographs. And how do you make the decision between, when something gets your visual attention in a scene and you think, yeah, this one is going to be in black and white? How does that process work?
I'm not really sure. I'm asked that frequently, and I really never know how to respond to that. I would say for the most part, the lion's share of everything I shoot is in color. The only exception to that is when I'm using the Noir filter in the Apple Photos app. And then I actually somehow when I'm using that filter live, not in post, like I'm shooting it live, I just get this feeling that I'm shooting black and white negative film. I don't know. It's just, the scenes that it's high contrast, or it's got a bunch of leading lines, or, it has a lot of white or black in it. It's just, I think 45 years of shooting, you're good at it. You're a fantastic black and white photographer. And I've seen you work on the street too. I'm sure it's the same thing. You see a scene and you have an intuition, an instinct, an impulse, and you go, black and white. Here it is, boom, click.
Yeah. I definitely think it is instinctive that, some scenes definitely lend themselves to black and white and just minimize, distractions and that. You spoke there about, with on the phone that sometimes you shoot with Noir and that. Also, I think that you mentioned about like the simplicity that shooting mobile brings. Tell us a little about, your process, because I know how you shoot in that, but maybe to share with the others your process, like you don't spend a lot of time in editing and things like that.
Yeah. I'd say my workflow is really pretty simple. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. I've come full circle. So started out, just shooting things that I wanted to shoot, then had a 3-decade career where I made money and had a tremendous client base of Fortune 500 companies, saw the world, traveled the world, and now I'm back to where I started, just shooting beautiful, lyrical, poetical things of life with my phone. So number one, I look like anybody else on the street. I mean, you don't see me tricked out with cages and LED lights and boom arms and audio gear. Yes, when I'm doing production or YouTube tutorials or those kind of things, yes, I am tricked out like everyone else. But if you were to see me on the street, I'm shooting naked. I have a phone and that's it. I look like Jack Consumer. That's number one. Number two, 95 to 99% of my workflow is 2 apps, and they are the apps that come bundled with the iPhone. All these shots you're seeing here, I would say almost 100% of them came from me shooting with the Photos app that came with the iPhone and editing them on the Photos app, which is probably the most underrated all-in-one editing app in iTunes today. And then number three, no, I spend literally seconds. All these shots were edited in seconds, like literally seconds. Like I have no patience. If it takes me longer than 15 to say 30 seconds, I'm like done with it. I use a few sliders. It's intuition, impulse, instinct. Again, I look at it. That looks cool. Boom, next, done. I mean, that's how I shot over 10 years, 1 million iPhone photos.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that is the thing as well, that, people need to understand get it done in shot, and that solutions or enhancements in editing are really, really limited. You can't, you can make a good photograph better, but you're not going to be able to correct things that much in editing and get it done. One of the other things that I think is interesting is like that I see behind you there that you have your iMac and that. And we were talking during the week, and I think both of us were the same, that maybe 7-8 years ago, all our editing would have been done on the big screen. But now both of us are wearing glasses and that. We do it on the small little screen here. And I think tell us a little about that change as well, because that is a big change going from big screen to.
Yeah, I would say I'd say 100% of my photographs literally are edited on the phone. I mean, I have iMacs and MacBook Pros, but I don't go there. I am about to buy the new iPad Mini that's Apple Pencil supported, and I'm going to probably kicking and screaming try my hand at editing on the Mini and seeing if I like the bigger real estate. If I like the bigger real estate, I'm going to migrate some of my portfolio stuff over to the iPad 12.9, iPad Pro 12.9, and try my hand at that. But really, you got three legs of a tripod: shooting, editing, and sharing, right? It can all be done on the phone. It's simple, it's intuitive, it's creative. There's so many apps, there's so many styles. I don't know why you would go elsewhere when you have the power in your palm, in your pocket with a phone.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I think less is more, and keep it simple, and it's fun. I think that's the thing that I love about shooting mobile. So 1 million iPhone photographs, a huge, lengthy, successful commercial career. You've clearly got, a burning passion for everything to do with photography. Looking to the future, what's still on the list to be ticked off for you in your photographic life, Jack? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do?
Oh man, there's so much I want to achieve, Brendan. I'm not one of those guys that thinks a lot about kind of what I've done or my past accomplishment. I'm so forward thinking in my photography. When somebody asks me, what's your favorite app? Well, it's the one I just used 2 seconds ago. Well, what's your favorite, iPhone camera? The one that's in my hand right now. What's your favorite location? The one I'm going to next. What's your favorite destination in the world? The one I'm visiting a month from now. So I am so obsessed and so immersed in the process and product of photography that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what I've done. I'm proud of what I've done.
Yeah.
There's so many shots in that 1 million corpus of work, or that canon of work, that I'm doing lots of stuff with. But I wake up in the morning and I think about making pictures, and I think I'm looking out in my backyard, and I've been, as I'm talking, I'm seeing this squirrel, these two squirrels meet. It would be like a cool shot. I mean, I want to get out and shoot it. I see the light on the bark of that tree. I want to go out and photograph that bark. So yeah, past is the past, but the future is the future. And there is so much that I want to do. I want to shoot more video. I want to learn to edit video a little better than I do now. I want to make books. I want to make large fine art prints. I want to do more.
In this photographic life. And I think more power to you, Jack. I think it's absolutely wonderful to hear that. Outside of photography, which clearly, is all consuming passion for you in your life, what other interests do you have? Do you switch off from photography?
Yeah. I'm embarrassed to tell you that I have so few interests outside of photography, and I'll tell you why that's intentional. And it's probably because the way I approach photography, and that's immersively. Like, I am all in all the time. I wake up and think about photography. I go to bed, I'm thinking about photography. And when I'm not shooting, I'm thinking about going out and shooting. So yeah, I mean, I like anybody else, I love camping. I'm an avid bike rider. I dig sports. I drink beer. I do all those things. I like design. I do all that stuff. But I am, in terms of hobby, interest, my work is 100% intentional, not casual. And that is the difference, I think, between what I do and what others do in the mobile space, because the magic is going from casual to intentional.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, but purposeful and like seeking out photographic opportunities and like seeing and thinking photographically. Fantastic. And tell me, Jack, like if you were to look back on your career and that if you were to talk, you're able to meet, let's say a 23, 24-year-old Jack, what advice would you give to that Jack? And what advice do you think that Jack would give to you at the stage of your career you are now?
Well, I think the young Jack would ask the now Jack. Well, I'm not sure what he would ask him, but I can tell you what he would not ask him, and he would not ask him what app he's using. He would not ask him what camera he is using. He would not ask him what accessory he is using, because even the starting out Jack would know that apps, accessories, and cameras don't make pictures. Photographers do. So I think the starting out Jack would be obsessed with asking the now Jack about the fundamentals and the foundations of photography: light, color, design, focus, white balance, exposure. Those are the things that make great photographs. And those will be the principles that I guarantee you will be true of every single one of the Mobiography Award winners this
year. Yeah, most definitely. Jack, I really enjoyed our conversation that we're going through it. I think that there's been questions coming through on the chat from our viewers. So I know we've been having technical difficulties, but it's been fantastic to be able to get through this. I think Andy is in the background, maybe that he has some questions to share from those who are. Okay, one is popping up here from Philip Garcia. What photo apps would you recommend, Jack?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's shocking. My workflow is so shockingly, maybe even embarrassingly simple. I use two apps, and they are the Apple apps. I use the camera app for capture, and then I use the Photos app for photo editing. When I'm going outside of the camera app, for some reason, I would use Camera Plus, maybe Halide. I like Reflex. When I'm editing, the only two editors that I would use probably in my workflow would be either Snapseed and/or Darkroom. So again, mostly I'm Apple centric, but if I have to use other apps, and I just don't like all these shots that you're seeing, they just were. I shot them on the Apple camera app, and I edited them on the Apple Photos app.
Yeah, and again, I think keeping it simple. I think that's the beauty of mobile. I think that the native camera app on Apple, like on most mobile devices, I think is underrated. I know that in some situations that the non-native camera apps that you mentioned, like Reflex or Halide, and that can find solutions that you would need. But I think 99% of the time, native camera app, and I would be a Snapseed, 100% Snapseed. Like that. Excellent. So Ron Boger,
I would also, I love Ron. I would also say I'm an Apple guy through and through. I don't use Android, but I love Android. If Apple stopped making cameras today, you know what camera that I would use? The Sony Xperia Pro 1 with a 1-inch sensor. Oh my God, that thing looks freaking out of this world. Unbelievable. So, I'm not going to switch anytime soon because I'm an Apple guy through and through. But if Apple stopped making cameras, I'd run right out and get that Xperia, which looks like, I can't wait to at some point test it.
That's brilliant. We have another question here, Jack, from Ron Boger. He's asking, what colors bring you to a scene on a rainy, overcast day?
Hey, Ron. One of my favorite iPhone photographers and filmmakers, and a registered nurse, and he's been my COVID guy for the last couple of years. When on the overcast day, of course, like most photographers, I just close the landscape, so I'd minimize the sky, not really show the sky unless I'm shooting black and white. So I would close the landscape so there's no sky, and that means my camera is kind of more or less pointed down. And then in terms of color, what would pull me into a scene? I probably in the overcast day, I don't look for those highly intense, pure, saturated colors. I go into kind of a soft, muted mode and look for those warm, those browns and grays and light greens. And I mean, all of us, I mean, yourself included, Brendan, are either warm photographers or cool
Yeah.
photographers. And I tend to be a warm guy. So my sensibilities and sensitivities gravitate toward the warm part of the spectrum, red, yellows, oranges, and I see them first, but on an overcast day, I like the muted sensibility that comes with an overcast day.
Yeah. And here in Ireland, we get a lot of overcast days, but not today. Elaine Taylor is popping up with a question here, and she's asking, what do you find particularly challenging, if anything?
Elaine, are you kidding me? If anything, yeah, worded badly. I love Elaine too. A really good friend of mine, and a terrific mobile photographer, and an awesome human being, and a 365 shooter. And so anyway, hey Elaine, what do I find challenging with? Probably, yeah. There's lots of things that I find challenging with, but to me, and you know this about me, art grows out of the heart, right? So all true great art comes when we are emotionally connected to our work. And the more we are emotionally connected to our work photographically, guess what? The better our images become. So I think sometimes I'm so intense, fast-paced, frenetic in my workflow style that I get more wrapped up in the mechanical, technical part of shooting without listening to the emotional resonancy, the intimacy of the moment, because I know for a fact when I stop long enough to think about it, the good stuff comes when you and me and Elaine and Ron and everyone else is connected emotionally to the work that we create.
100%. 100%. So I just think, are there any more questions there from the audience that are viewing in? That anything you want to ask Jack before we bring it to a wrap like that? I don't think there are. Like, Jack, for me, it's been absolutely fantastic to be able to get you on the show. We've been, as I said, we've been waiting a long time to get you on. And I said at the outset that your passion, your enthusiasm for photography is infectious. And I'm pretty sure that those who are tuning in today and those who will watch the recording down the line, they're going to want to get out and shoot after this. We've one more question that from Ian in London. He sent you a question on Twitter about pros and cons of JPEG versus RAW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so because my workflow is so Apple-centric, you have three choices, right? You have JPEG, which is most compatible. You have the high efficiency, which is the HEIF, and then you have Pro RAW. So for most of my last 10 years, I've shot JPEG, which is most compatible, because that was the universally accepted bucket that kind of talked to other formats in other platforms. More recently, I like the added dynamic range and tonality that HEIF gives me. So I've been shooting more HEIF than JPEG, and I rarely shoot Pro RAW. And the only reason I don't shoot Pro RAW, because I'm not an editing dude. Like, I would shoot RAW or Pro RAW in the Apple world for one of two reasons. One, I want to print super large, or two, I want to do some extreme cropping. So I can get at 200 DPI, I can get a pretty good size 20 by 30, out of a 12 megapixel file. So there's really no need to go much bigger than that. And I don't do a lot of intense post-processing of my images that require me to do extreme cropping, like take just a little bite out of something. So for the most part, I will shoot a Pro RAW shot every now and then because I like the, big 25 megabyte files, but When I started, it was JPEG. Now it's HEIF, and I rarely shoot ProRAW.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that people probably overlooked is that the quality of the JPEG has improved a lot over the years, and that I shoot JPEG most of the time as well. Robin Mencher's asking a bit off topic, but where can she buy your T-shirt? Yeah, we should have those as prizes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't honestly remember, but I will dig it out, and I'll send a link to Brendan. I only own like 10 T-shirts, and they're all photo shirts, and they're all black. And I own 3 pairs of jeans and some black boots and a blue jean jacket, and that's pretty much me. And that's it.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, Jack, it has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, and I'm looking forward to when we can shoot together again. Hopefully that will be soon. So what we're going to do now is that I said at the outset of the live show today that one of our prize giveaways, Joby, that they put up a prize for those who have entered the competition thus far, and it's been a random raffle to select the winner. And I think that if Andy or Glenn are in the background, I think that we should be able to announce who has won this. Oh, here we go. Here's a video. A little drum roll. You can hear a drum. Da, 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 da. And the winner is Ian Matthews. So, Ian, I'm not sure if you're tuning in. I think you are. I think there was a question from Ian earlier. You're the winner of the Joby gear. And that I think that if you could maybe make contact with us, we'll get your details, and we will get this fantastic piece of kit from Joby out to you. And thank you very much for entering the competition to be in part of the draw. So that's it. I think that at the start we had a lot of tech difficulties, and fair play to Glenn and Andy in the background trying to pull things together. There's Glenn. Fantastic.
Hey, Andy.
Are we going to announce the next prize draw? Is it Cozy Speed?
So Nick, in the next live show that's coming in the next few weeks, it's going to be our sponsored giveaway is from Cozy Speed, who make these fantastic bags for photographers and also for mobile photographers, and they put up 2 prizes for us. So again, get your entries into the competition. If you're not in, you can't win in our giveaways that will be coming up, and that will be in the coming weeks with announcements to come. So stay tuned for that. But I think that we're going to wrap up. And again, big thanks, Jack. It is an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure everybody that has tuned in as well is going to say the same thing. It was fantastic. And to Glenn and Andy, with the difficulties that you both had, I really appreciate it that we pulled it together. We kept the show on the road. And we look forward to the next one. To all of those of you who've tuned in, thank you very much for your continued loyalty. Enter the competition. Become part of the community. And we'll learn and share together as we move forward. And wherever you are in the world, have a good weekend. Over and out. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.